Welcome to day number 2 of our discussion on how to understand the self according to Sociology. Revihin ko lang kayo ng mga main points natin from last meeting. Number 1, paulit-ulit na ako dito, our self is shaped by the groups that we belong to. Kung ikaw ay magiging mabuti o masamang tao, depende yan sa grupo na kinaaaniban mo. Tsaka ihabol ko lang, alam niyo may magandang application dito. You can get to know a person better without talking to that person. Pwede mo siyang mas makilala kung kahit hindi mo siya kausapin. Ang gawin mo lang, i-analyze mo yung mga tao na nakapaligid sa kanya. Sino ba yung mga barkada niya? Ano ba yung mga fina-follow niya sa Instagram, sa Facebook? More or less, malalaman mo ang ugali ng tao. Because again, there is a very direct link between the groups that we belong to at ang pag-uugali ng self. Number 2, kung ginawa niyo yung assignment niyo, remember I asked you to watch an episode of Brain Games. In that episode, nakita niyo yung babae, tumayo siya, ginaya niya yung mga tao sa paligid niya without her knowing why is she standing up in the first place. And when the Brain Games asked her, why did you stand even if you don't know why you're standing? Anong sinagot niya? Quotable quote to. Ang sabi niya, everyone standing up, so I thought I was supposed to. Let me repeat. Everyone is standing up, so I thought I was supposed to. Alam niyo, nangyayari din yan sa tunay na buhay. I-translate mo yan sa labas ng laboratory. Everyone is cutting classes, so I thought I was supposed to. Everyone was taking drugs, so I thought I was supposed to. Lahat naman kasi sila nangongopya eh. Kaya sa tingin ko, okay lang naman. Pinag-usapan din natin yan last meeting, how the power of the group can also shape, can change what you think about what is right and what is wrong. Kahit yung moral reasoning mo, kayang ma-impluwensyahan ng grupo. And last one, number 3, I also want to repeat again, napaka-powerful talaga ng media. Ayan na naman yung media na yan. Ang tagal-tagal ko na dito Yung media talaga, napaka-powerful in shaping our selves. Yes! Kaya nga 'di ba last meeting, ang sinabi ko sa inyo is talagang maingat dapat tayo sa mga klase ng media na pinapanood natin. Kasi malaki ang epekto niyan sa ating mga sarili. The media can question the foundation that was set to you by your family. Yung pamilya mo, magagandang asal ng tinubo sa'yo. Bakit paminsan-minsan biglang nagbabago ugali mo? Pumapangit ang ugali mo because of what media is teaching the self. Most of the time, salungat kasi. Opposite yung tinuturo ng media compared to the family. The family teaches you one thing and the media will teach you the opposite. Kaya napaka-importante talaga that we are very careful about this media that we are ingesting. Habol ko lang about media, let's not forget also the influence of social media to the self. Lalong-lalo na ngayon, we are in the age of social media, maraming epekto ang sa self natin kapag madalas ang paggamit natin ng social media. And what are some of these effects of social media to the self? Listen to this next part of our lecture. You know, this influence of the media can start young. If you watch the short clip I asked you to watch about iPad babies, the point of the video is our youth today, young people today are now very different because they are being shaped by media at such a young age. Babies are being babysitted by iPads, and studies have shown that this is not good for the self. There was this one study done by psychologists. They compared the characteristics or the characters between the 90s kids before all this media, before all these technologies, and the kids of today. And you know what they find out? What they found out? There is a very big difference in their resilience. What do you mean by resilience? Sa Tagalog, ang resilience, katatagan. How strong you are in facing problems. How good you are in bouncing back after you fall down. That's resilience. And if you compare the resilience of kids today versus resilience of kids of the past, kids today have very low resilience. How do you develop resilience? The key to developing resilience is through real-life relationships. Unfortunately, our culture today is no longer into these real-life relationships because almost everything is virtual. And that includes friendships. There are a lot of interactions today that are very artificial, very virtual, and so as a result, our resilience is not developed, especially among younger people. There was this study done by the National Statistics Authority in the Philippines. What did they find out? Slowly but surely, the rates of depression among young people today are increasing. And unfortunately, among these young people who are depressed, many of them cannot handle the depression. So what do? They kill themselves. This is bad news for us, especially in our society today, where it seems like everything is virtual. It is not contributing to our resilience, and media has a very big contribution to this. Okay, let's make sense of this worksheet. I want you to notice in this worksheet, let me guess, I'm sure 100% of you use different adjectives. What I mean is, I'm sure you have different adjectives depending on the group of people that you are with. I want you to notice that, right? I mean, very rare would a person write down the same adjectives across different groups. Usually, you will write different adjectives among different groups. And the second thing I want you to notice are the low ratings that you gave yourself. I consider low ratings to be anywhere between 0 to 5. Okay? So that's the second thing I want you to notice. First, you are using different adjectives, and then I want you to spot those adjectives that you gave yourself a low rating. For example, let's say you gave yourself an adjective of happy under peers, and you gave yourself a 2. Now, what do you mean by this? You appear happy to your peers, but deep inside, you're not really happy. And this happens a lot in our everyday life, right? I want you to realize that there are a lot of times in our lives, we are compromising ourselves. We are compromising ourselves. We are willing to let go who we really are just to satisfy the expectation of other people. In fact, that's the reason why you are changing adjectives across different groups. Because you know, different groups have different expectations and you want to meet those expectations. In other words, we have the habit of wearing masks. We have different persona depending who or the group that we are with. Alam nyo, tayong mga Pilipino, magaling tayong makisama sa ibang mga tao. What do they call that in English? We are so adjustable. We are so flexible towards other people. We are going to adjust ourselves para lang makisama sa ibang tao. Right? Kahit na hindi ka naman ganon, you are going to behave like this so that you will not offend people, so that you will not hurt people. You are ready to let go of who you are. In other words, naglalagay tayo ng mga maskara. Iba-iba tayo, depende kung sino kasama natin. You are a different person if you are with your parents. Iba ka na naman when you are with your friends. Lalong-lalong iba ka naman when you are inside the church. Ang tanong, is that okay to do? Okay lang ba na nag-iiba-iba tayo ng ating personality o ng ating presentation depending on who are the people we are with?
Ano sa tingin?
Isa itong kaplastikan. Is this hypocrisy? As we go along this lecture, we are going to answer that question. Is it okay to change ourselves depending on who are the people with us? Now, let's go to the second table I asked you to answer. This is really interesting. Remember, in this table, I ask you to write down the labels, mga labels na binibigay sa'yo ng mga tao sa paligid mo. And then I ask you to rate that label, right? So, I would like you to go back to that work that you have. Kunin mo ulit yung table na yon, and let's make sense of what's happening here. I want you to focus now on this worksheet that you have completed. In the first column, I ask you to write down the labels that you usually receive from other people. And the second column asks you to rate how true are those labels given to you by these people in column 1. I want you to focus this time on those labels that you gave yourself a low score. Meaning, what do you mean by low score? This is what these people is saying about you, but guess what? It's not true about you. In other words, what I want you to see here is there are a lot of times that the society can be wrong about you. Sa Tagalog, pwedeng magkamali ang society sa'yo. Pwedeng magkamali ang mga grupo mo tungkol sa'yo. May sinasabi sila ng mga bagay tungkol sa'yo, pero hindi totoo.
Mali ang iniisip mo!
That's why I want you to develop the skill, a very important skill in life, where you can differentiate, you can filter between who you really are and who the society says you are. Those are two different things. You need to know who you really are versus what other people say you are. Because most of the time, what people say you are is wrong. Because if not, if you cannot differentiate the two, you are in danger of self-fulfilling prophecy. What do you mean by self-fulfilling prophecy? A prediction that directly or indirectly causes itself to become true. In Tagalog, naniniwala ka na sa mga sinasabi nilang mali about you.
Ano ngayon?
And that is not good. And why is it you are a victim of self-fulfilling prophecy? Because you don't even know who you are in the first place. So what do? You believe what other people say about you. I know one example of a guy who has been a victim of this, the eagle in our first meeting. If you remember the story, right? He is an eagle, but he grew up with chickens. So all the chickens that surround him are telling him that he's a chicken, even if in real life, he's really an eagle. Unfortunately, what did he do? He accepted the fact that he is a chicken. He lived like a chicken, he moved like a chicken, he ate like a chicken, he flew like a chicken because he believed that he's a chicken. He did not realize who he really is. He is really an eagle. You see, that's what happens to self-fulfilling prophecy if you don't know who you really are. That's why you have, again, to differentiate who you are and what other people say you are. As we close our discussion on how the group shapes the self, bigyan ko lang ulit kayo ng mga major points na wag niyong kalilimutan. Number 1, group shapes you. Paulit-ulit na ako dyan. Whoever you are right now, a very big part of yourself is based on the things that you learned from your groups. Kaya dapat maingat ka sa mga grupong sinasalihan mo. Number 2, sana ma-realize nyo to. Hindi ibig sabihin nun, powerless tayo sa influence ng grupo.
No!
We have a choice how groups of people who surround us will influence us. We have the power to resist. We have the power to choose kung anong klaseng mga impluensya yung ibibigay nila sa atin. Hindi tayo slaves of our groups. We always have the power to choose which influences we will absorb, which influences we will resist. At sana gamitin natin yung choice na yan para maganda ang impluensya sa atin ng mga grupo na nasa labas natin.
Amen!
Number 3, I want to ask a question. After all these things that I've taught you about the influence of the group to the self, sino ba dapat ang mas nagmamatter sa buhay natin? That's a good question. Ikaw ba? O yung ibang tao? Halimbawa, may gusto kang gawin. Ano ba ang dapat mong pakikinggan? Yung boses ng sarili mo? O yung sasabihin ng ibang tao? Alam nyo, ang sagot dyan, pareho. Okay? Don't get me wrong ha. Hindi ko tinuturo sa lesson na ito na dapat ang mga grupo nire-resist natin. Hindi lahat. Sabi ko nga, pipiliin mo. Dapat yung mga pipiliin mong mga grupo, yung mga pipiliin mong mga impluensya, ay yung mga makakabuti sa'yo. Pero ito ang point. Hindi naman pwede, on the other hand, hindi naman pwedeng laging ikaw lang. Hindi mo pwedeng sabihin na, wala na akong pakialam sa iba. Ang importante ngayon, yung gusto ko. It's not like that.
Hindi ganyan.
Dapat binabalanse mo. May pagkakataon, you are listening to yourself. May mga pagkakataon, you are listening to the group. Hindi pwedeng all self, hindi rin naman pwedeng all groups. If you want to learn more about this, you continue watching the video. In closing, after everything I'm discussing about the group and how it influences the self, do you think what others say should matter to you? Is it a good attitude when you say some things like this? Don't change so people will like you. Be yourself and the right people will love the real you. Don't let someone else's opinion define you. What do you think? Is this a good attitude?
Ano sa tingin mo?
My answer is no. This is not a good attitude to have. Can you imagine a person every day in his life he always says this, right? What do you call that person who lives according to this principle? You call this a selfish person. You should not have this kind of attitude. Take me or leave me. That's a wrong attitude. Why? Because in reality, you have to accept the fact that we live in a social world, meaning we are always living with other people. Whatever you do, whatever you say, can affect the feelings, can affect the state of other people. We need to bear with each other. You cannot just live for yourself. You cannot just do what you want. You also need to take into consideration what other people would feel about your actions. That's why the Bible teaches us, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but in humility, consider others better than yourselves.
Amen.
You always need to consider what other people would say. But at the same time, the Bible is not saying that you should also just forget yourself. It must be a balance between the self and others. The point here is you should not go to the extremes. Don't go to the extreme of just listening to others. Also, don't go to the extreme of just loving yourself. That's why going back to my question a while ago, if you still remember, is it okay to wear masks? Is it okay to adjust your persona depending who you're with? My answer is yes. In fact, you need to do this. In fact, this is even necessary. Because there are certain people who will be hurt by your actions if you just do your actions based on what you feel. So there are times that you really need to inhibit yourself. There are times that you need to stop yourself from doing certain actions to avoid other people getting hurt. And that is not bad. In fact, there's this one song, learning to love yourself is the greatest love of all. This is wrong. Don't believe this.
Hindi ganyan.
You are not only living for yourself because there are other people who are around you who can get hurt when you just do what you do. Too much self-love is not good. Don't get me wrong, I am not saying it's bad to love yourself, but what I'm saying is to just love yourself all throughout your life. That is wrong. There must be a balance between the self and other people. I think the best example I could think of here is what happened to Joker. If you have seen the movie Joker,
Hindi.
that's his problem. He always goes to the extreme. At the first part of the movie, what happened? He always listens to others. He follows the rules, he follows his boss to the point he already forgotten himself. People are making fun of him. People are not respecting him because he is always in the extreme of others. Until one day, he got sick and tired of the system. What did he do? He decided to go to extreme self-love. But was he happy when he went over to that part where he just loved himself?
Hindi.
He began hurting other people. He is also not happy when he went into this extreme side. Again, there must be a balance between the self and others. I like what Buddhism teaches about this. What did Buddha say about the balancing self and others? Give, but don't allow yourself to be used. Love, but don't allow your heart to be abused. Trust, but don't be naive. Listen, but don't lose your own voice.
Isn't it amazing?
I like that sense of balance. The self and other people. Even in Christianity, this sense of balance is being taught. According to Mark 12:31, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. How many loves can you see here? There are two loves here. Who should you love? Yourself and your neighbor. The Bible expects you to love yourself, but the Bible also teaches you to love other people. There must be a balance. Your life is not only about yourself, but it is also about touching the lives of other people. Don't go to the extreme. All self-love is wrong. All group love is wrong. There must be a sense of balance between self-love and loving other people. That's why as we close this lesson, I want you to reflect. You pause this video and you reflect. In what ways are you balancing your love for yourself and balancing your love for others? If you cannot answer this question, then I think something must be adjusted. If you love yourself too much, or if you love others too much, you must go in the middle. There must be a balance between how much you love yourself and how much you love other people.